the presentation, it says recording in progress. That way, if we have any folks who miss it, they may watch it. So I'm going to get started here. Hold on a moment. Okay, I'm going to put my contact information here in the chat window. And that way, if you have any questions, you may just let me know after the presentation. Okay, so there's my email and there's my phone number. So if you end up with questions after the presentation, please just say, hey, and we'll get you set. I tell you from the fullness of my heart that there are so many things that I don't know. But I will say in the year and a quarter that I've been doing this, year and a third, I have learned a lot more. So this has been a lot of fun, learning a lot of new things. Okay, let's get started. Oh, I need to share my screen. Hold on. Share screen, presentation, share. Admit one more person. Admit two more people. Okay. Okay. Slideshow from beginning. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Kevin. This is our final Denver Through the Decades presentation. Who'da thunk, right? Last year when we got started in January of 2022, here we are. A year and a quarter later, we've made it through tonight we will have made it through the entirety of the city's history. Since we have just 3 years beyond the 2010s, we are going to go ahead and cover everything. Although, I don't know, there's certainly many things in this 13-year period that we're going to leave out. And tonight is a bit of a shorter presentation because some things I just didn't want to delve into too deeply because we're still with them. It's still upon us right now. I actually spoke with my colleagues about what we should talk about tonight, and they had a lot of ideas, but some of these things are still too close, so I decided not to. All right, so again, I will not be going over everything tonight that happened in this 13-year period, so please forgive me, sorry, if I skip your favorite thing. There are always so many things to talk about. Sorry, I have to let some more people in, and I have to go on. Okay, so a completely perfectly arbitrary list of things that have happened in the last 13 years. Just some things. All right, so most of you who've traveled with me before know that my favorite architectural style is brutalism. As I always say, it is so ugly that you have to like it. It's really like a really ugly dog. So an excellent example of brutalism in the metropolitan area is the Clyfford Still Museum, which opened in 2011. I love this place. I will tell you, I had never heard of Clyfford Still before. I am not an art person, don't know much about art, but we ended up getting most of his collection. I wrote down here, 93% of the artist's work would be part of the collection that we have here in Denver. And the reason for that is because upon his death, his widow wanted the collection to go to a city, one museum, if at all possible. So a bidding war basically took place, and Denver said, all right, we're gonna do it. We're gonna build a museum. We're gonna house all of these things. And so Denver got the work of Clyfford Still, 93% of it. And I wrote down some more numbers here. That is 3,125 works created between 1920 and 1980, as well as his complete archives of writings and notes and all that good stuff. So should you be a fan of Clyfford Still, then the Clyfford Still Museum is a place for you. It's not just because of the wonderful architecture. I mean, look at that. Doesn't that fill your heart with happiness? I know it does mine every time. It's because of the art itself. So I did a tour with some people once upon a time, the Clyfford Still Museum. and took some photos. Let's see, this is back in 2012, holy guacamole. So there I am 11 years ago. Wow, look at that guy. There I am with my favorite painting in the museum. Clyfford Still was an abstract expressionist, and apparently he was one of the original abstract expressionists in the world. The museum offers 9 galleries. It also has shopping and all that good stuff in there. So the painting that you see there on the upper left-hand side, that is an actual painting. I cut part of it off. And then here in the middle, you see sort of an overhead grate there that was meant to look artistic. And then here on the right-hand side, this is my attempt to be artistic. They actually have this garden on this terrace thing, but it has all these wooden panels around it. So I got down on my belly and took a picture of the wood through the grass there. So there I am being artistic. As you can see, I have no artistic ability at all. So this is in the Golden Triangle neighborhood. This part of Denver has really tried to embrace its museum focus. So the Golden Triangle, a number of museums, would be a good place for you to go to see the Clyfford Still Museum. Now, you may have noticed that we did not do the growth of the city of Denver. We've been doing that now for many presentations. That is because my colleague at Denver Infill and Denver Urbanism, Ken Schreppel, he has not yet done one of those maps for the 2010s, so we don't have one to use. The growth in the 2010s definitely would have continued out near the Stapleton Airport, the DIA Airport area in the Green Valley Ranch, area, and Southwest Denver, and a lot of infill, especially in the Union Station redevelopment area. Here's some more works of Clyfford Still. And if you haven't been, you should go give it a look. I don't remember what the price is, since I really think I have not been there since 2012. A 2-story, 28,500 square foot building. It is wonderful. Now, another place that opened during this time would be the new History Colorado Center, now 11 years old, so I suppose not that new. The original museum, which was built in the 1970s, was torn down for an expansion to the Supreme Court building, which now takes up an entire block. History Colorado moved about 2 blocks south. The building that you see here, a work of art in and of itself, does not take up the entire block, but it does take up the bulk of it. And this is the place where our State Historical Society shares its archives and interacts with the public. Many of the things that they have in there are, of course, off limits to us. They have all kinds of things in storage. The wedding dress of Elizabeth McCourt Doe Tabor. That being said, there are lots of wonderful things that you may go in there to do. So this is from a visit I did with some folks back in 2012. There I am driving the old-fashioned car. You can see that I'm absolutely terrified. I did drive into the ditch and we all died. It was very, very sad. I'm sitting there with some other people in the car. You cannot see in the picture the looks of terror on their faces. When I was there in 2012, they had all kinds of things done up in Legos. That's up in the upper middle there. And they had other artifacts. I don't remember what the spacesuit there was for, but the History Colorado Center does change what it shows in its displays. And because it is a state agency, it is not a super expensive place to go. They do have a lot to see. So the History Colorado Center opened in 2012. Another thing that has opened in this last part of our exploration is Meow Wolf. Now, I had not been to the original Meow Wolf in New Mexico until after I visited this one here in Denver. I have since gone to the one in New Mexico. It is an experience. Oh, someone is saying, I believe that suit. Okay, let's go back. Okay, I believe that suit is from the 10th Mountain Division as he's holding skis. Huh. See how clever you are? I love it. Okay, so that is a guess from the 10th Mountain Division as the person is holding skis. I am not a skier, so I would never have noticed that, but I bet you're right. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so the original Meow Wolf in New Mexico, I think it's the one in Denver and Las Vegas as the extensions of those. This one is built in an incredibly interesting location. If you look here, on the right-hand side, you have Colfax. On the left-hand side, you have the on-ramp from the Auraria campus area onto Colfax. And behind the building, you have I-25. So literally, Meow Wolf was wedged into this tiny gap between these three roads. They like that. They like the edgy and the sort of weird locations. The building itself is quite the experience. I don't know if you would actually call it a museum. Maybe it's a museum. I would really call it an experience. The inside of the building bears no resemblance to the exterior that you see here, which is relatively bland. Why was Meow Wolf built here? Well, folks, in, oh, good night, 2015 or so, the River Mile project was announced. So the area from downtown Denver, up near the aquarium, that area, all the way down to Meow Wolf and beyond is going to be made into our own San Antonio River Walk type thing. So that is going to entail a huge change. Meow Wolf, they're no idiots. They knew this was coming. And so they have now put themselves as the anchor at the southern end of this future project. Now, supposedly the project is going to take 20 to 25 years, but Meow Wolf is already there and ready to go. So in 2022, I took some pictures in there. There I am on the right-hand side in the weird psychedelic room. Actually, what am I saying? Pretty much all of it is psychedelic. There I am on the left-hand side as well. I really should have taken some pictures of some other things, but I really didn't think about it there. I didn't take a lot of pictures. I was mostly just walking around agog. Meow Wolf opened in 2021. If you haven't been, 100% worth a visit. I've had a lot of people really comment on how much they enjoy the place. So in 2021, we also got the Space Force. So I wrote this down because it's too much to remember. So in 2021, Peterson Field in Colorado Springs became the Peterson Space Force Base. Schriever Air Force Base and Cheyenne Mountain Air Force Base stations also became Space Force bases. And Buckley, here in the Denver metro area, Buckley Air Force Base was renamed Buckley Space Force Base for the United States Space Force. So even though you and I, as a country and Americans, we really don't have much of a Space Force yet, we will in the future, and we want to be ready. So on our left-hand side, you see the emblem. On our right-hand side, you see a picture there we did, I think it was last year, when we went out to tour the Space Force and some of the associated places on Buckley. There's our tour group. You see some very good-looking people there. There's one on the helicopter. I can't tell who that is, but from this distance, looks really, really attractive. And we had a full tour of the place with jets and helicopters and all kinds of things. We did learn in a presentation about the Space Force, its mission, what they're doing. That was an online presentation, not an online presentation, an on-a-screen presentation. So we learned a lot. I don't really have anything to share with you from that presentation because, of course, it was their presentation. But in 2021, the Denver metro area embraced the future of space, with Buckley being the Buckley Space Force Base. In 2020, we got Fisher's Peak, our newest state park, our 42nd state park down near Trinidad, 19,200 acres. The top of the mesa is pretty flat. The mesa itself covers about 18 acres. So if you were to go up there, it would be really big, the top of that mesa. Now, right now, you're not allowed to go to the top of the mesa. It is part of the park, but they have not yet formalized access to all of the places that you see here. So Fisher's Peak, our newest state park, A lot of the work to get this state park created did happen in Denver, as all those big movers and shakers worked with the landowners in the immediate area and then came up to Denver to work on the legislative piece as well as the money piece. So if you look at the map on the upper right-hand side, that shows you where the park is in relation to Denver. You see it's way down there at the bottom, close to Trinidad. In the lower left-hand side, you see it blown up there. It stretches from immediately south of Trinidad all the way to the New Mexico border. I was just down there this week. We did a tour to Trinidad Monday and Tuesday, and I had a lunch break, and so I went out and hiked the Harrowing Trail that you see here. It is a fairly undeveloped park at this point. If you look, at the map on the right-hand side, you have two really dinky trails, and then you have one really big one that goes up the hill. Sorry, hiccups. That goes up the hillside. It is an old service road for when this was a ranch. Back in the day, a Frenchman, Mr. Marc Jung, whose family had a lot of money from grocery stores, back in the 1970s decided he was going to buy a bunch of land and be a rancher. So a lot of this land that you see here was his ranch. In the end, he really never did anything with it. And that was a good thing because it was allowed to remain relatively undisturbed. His wife would eventually put it up for sale. I wrote down some of the parties here. The Colorado Department of Resources, Great Outdoors Colorado, Nature Conservancy, the state and the city and the county, Los Animas County, all got together to help purchase this land for a park. So if you haven't been there, you should give it a go. Okay. I, of course, am a big fan of transit. Almost 20 years didn't have a car, so yay for being able to get around through other mechanisms. During the last 13 years, we have put together a lot of new transit options. So the original light rail opened in 2004. That would have connected from the Auraria campus up to what is today 30th and Downing in the 5 Points neighborhood. And from there, it has expanded all over the place. In the last 13 years, we have gotten the A line in 2016, the G line in 2019, and the N line in 2020. So the A line is the one there in the light blue that stretches from Union Station all the way out to the airport. Of all of the lines, it is easily the most popular, the one that gets the most usage. It is fascinating because many American cities don't have a line from the airport to downtown. So yay for Denver for having that. Brings a lot of folks right into Union Station, and I take it a lot. The next line that came up from this time period was the one you see in the orangey color there. That's the G line. A lot of folks call it the gold line. The G line stretches up to downtown Arvada, where I just was earlier this week, or no, it was last week, and out toward Ward Road. It follows the line of the old train tracks and the interurbans that once would have connected you up to Golden. Unfortunately, it does not go all the way to Golden. I guess that's all right. We do have the W line to do that. And the most recent, the one that opened during the pandemic, is the N line. The N line there you see in the purple, that takes you from downtown to the National Western Stock Show, which now has a light rail stop, or excuse me, a heavy commuter rail stop, which is great, and continues all the way up to East Lake, which is in the city of Thornton. Now, the long-term plan does call for the N line to continue all the way up to the boundary there at 168th between Adams County and Weld County. Not sure exactly when that will happen. The N line is the newest of them, and we're going to do a tour on the N line next year. So that'll be fun. So these three lines came in within these last 13 years. And they're all worth a go. You should go to Old Town Arvada and visit Rhinelander Bakery. That's really I think the most important thing. Yum, 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 yum. Okay, we march along. So we have Union Station. Now, if you look at the front of Union Station, you'll see on the left-hand side there, it says 1880 in that little medallion. And on the right-hand side, it says 1914. The reason it says two different dates is not because it took that long to build. It's because the wings were built starting in 1880, finishing in 1881. The central section was expanded outward, as you see, in 1914. So two different sections of the building, and thus two different dates. Now, up above, you see the orange neon Union Station, travel by train. Well, in the 20-aughts, they closed down Union Station so as to do a multi-year renovation on the station. It cost more than $500 million. RTD owns the property, and it was intended to become a new mixed-use development. Part transit station, yes, part hotel. Before the pandemic, more than 100,000 people every day came through the station, a lot of them for work. Since now we don't have as many people working in downtown Denver, we have fewer folks coming through the station. The Crawford Hotel, which is in there, still sees a lot of business. There are some things that they discovered when they were working on the redevelopment of the station before its reopening. Its grand ta-da, reopening in 2014. One of the locals realized that the 105th meridian of longitude passes directly through the station. So the sign on the right-hand side talks about that peculiarity of longitude, exactly 105 degrees west of Greenwich in England. And on the left-hand side, what a lot of people think is an old streetcar rail actually is just a line marking where that 105th meridian is, nothing more. In the olden days, before the pandemic, I had lots of school groups, and we would go over there and I'd make them stand on that line and jump up and down. The kids liked it, and it amused me to make a bunch of kids jump up and down. And of course, the teachers and parents loved it because they got great pictures of their students and children gleefully jumping up and down on a piece of longitude, a piece of map right here in Denver. So not super duper important, just sort of quirky. Inside Union Station, some things were lost. If you look at the bench on the right-hand side, those are the benches from the 1914 expansion. The premise with the redo of the station is that those benches would all be kept as a section of the old. However, in working on them and cleaning them, they found out that, I think it was the shellac on the benches actually contained asbestos, and they had not budgeted enough money to remediate all of those benches. So they only saved 2 of them. Otherwise, we have modern benches, couches, chairs, that sort of thing. On our left-hand side, you might say, oh, well, at least they kept the original chandeliers. Well, that's not actually so. If you look in those, at that picture, excuse me, the chains holding the chandeliers are the originals. Now, at some point, they had taken off those original chandeliers, each one weighing more than a ton, and they'd put them away in storage with the premise that they would reuse them. Somehow, they lost the chandeliers. So when it came time to redo the station, they took pictures of that they already had of the chandeliers of old, and they recreated them. So the chandelier chains, original, the chandeliers are not original. So the next time you go into Union Station, just say, hey, I admire those original chandelier chains. And I think everyone will appreciate that we have beautiful chandelier chains in our Union Station. Okay. As we continue, another thing that started during this time period was the redevelopment of the National Western Stock Show site. You may recall, what was it, about 10 years or so? No, 2015, that's what it was. 2015, the people of the area voted, do we or do we not want to keep the stock show in Denver? Now, there were good reasons, bad reasons for both. In the end, the citizens of Denver voted that they would like to keep the stock show in Denver. That did mean we were going to spend a lot of money to redevelop the site. This map that you have here shows some of the redevelopment going on. If you look sort of at the lower right-hand side between the 13 and the 1, you see the light rail there, the marker. That is where the heavy commuter rail stop is. Some fun things are happening as part of the redevelopment of here. The South Platte through this area for really decades. I mean, the National Western started in 1906 and they began the development of this site in earnest in the teens. The interface between the river and the stock show was absolutely non-existent. In fact, the bulk of the interface was 2 giant sewer pipes carrying almost the entirety of Denver's wastewater and sewage down to the waste treatment plant. So there was really no interface with the river. Also, there where you see it says the 51st Avenue Bridge, that bridge is going to be new. I was on it a few months ago. It's not yet open to the public. If you look down at the bottom at the river, it says Betty Cram Drive. That bridge also does not or did not exist originally. Betty Cram was a longtime resident of the Elyria area, and she really pushed for a lot of historic preservation efforts as part of the stock show redevelopment. So even though she's no longer with us, the street honors her devotion to the area. Now, if you look, this is an old map. The cost, $765 million. I don't actually know it, still accurate, not accurate, but the 7 years I know is not accurate. Everything slowed down with the pandemic. So the fun thing is, except for the time that the pandemic shut down the stock show has still been running even with this construction. So this is going to finish somewhere, I hope, this decade. So again, the voters said, yes, we want to keep it here. And that is why we still have the National Western Stock Show in Denver. So yay us for deciding to keep it here. Okay, who said light rail goes there now from downtown? Yes, it does go there now. I'm sorry, it says not who said, you said. It does go there, and I have ridden it. So there, the lower right-hand side, that is heavy commuter rail. Just to be accurate, light rail is what we originally had. Light rail has a maximum speed of 55 miles an hour. That is the original system. Much of the expansion, including the N line, the G line, the line to the airport, the A line, those are all heavy commuter rail, which can go faster, farther, carry more weight, has a maximum speed of 79 miles an hour. So the line there on the campus, the National Western campus, is heavy commuter rail, and that's the one that goes up to the East Lake area there in Thornton. I have ridden it. It's a lot of fun. During stock show, they do have lots of people go there by train. Okay, next. Oh, I forgot to show. Now, some of the buildings on the site are already open and fully existent. There on the left-hand side, you see this, that one. And inside it, you see the little kitty cat there. I got a picture with the kitty cat. They had it, this little statue or whatever it is, they had it all set up so that when you walked in front of the cat, it would make a noise of a cat. Sometimes that would mean it would purr, sometimes it would meow, sometimes it would hiss. So I had great fun, I have to say, walking back and forth in front of the cat to see all the noises I could get the kitty to make. And I did look it up here. I went to get one of the brochures. We are doing a walking tour on August 16th to tour the new stock show site. So I've already been up there. I'll go up there again and do my updates, because certain buildings that I wasn't able to see back in January have opened since. So if you'd like to join us for a tour of the stock show campus, that'll be August 16th. So you may sign up for that and we'll go see the stock show together. All right, this is a big deal for Denver. This is being turned into a year-round resource. The stock show was usually only just a couple weeks, and then sometimes they had the powwow on there. but now it is really going to be a year-round campus, and they have all of these institutions coming there to make the most of the campus. So this is not necessarily restricted to Denver, but when I was looking at all of the things that have happened in the last 13 years, looking at the history, not just of Denver, but of Colorado, I was not amused, haha, but I guess I would say amused, stunned, amused, shocked. I'm not sure how you'd say it, at how many of the things listed on the sites, where the history of the city and state are chronicled, how many of the listings were for forest fires. Literally, it was page after page of fires. So of all the recorded fires in Colorado history, since we have been keeping records, the 20 largest have all occurred in this century. Of the top 5, 4 have occurred within the 3-year period 2018 to 2020. So we have a lot of fires going on, or have had a lot of fires going on in Colorado. This is an interface between several things. We talked, what was it, last month, I think, about the drought, the historic, unprecedented droughts that we have been experiencing in Colorado. Add to that a whole bunch of people moving up into the mountains or moving close to the mountains where prairie grasses can ignite, as we saw with the Marshall Fire. And you have that wonderful recipe for unhappiness when fire does go on. Now, of course, up in the mountains, we've had more snow this year, but I was watching an analysis of that. Even with all the snow we've had, Lakes Powell and Mead are maybe going to fill by 6%. We need another 5 or 6 years in the mountains, just like this one, before we even come close to getting all of our reservoirs and other things up in the mountains full. And the watersheds, the Arkansas and the Rio Grande, have not seen the same huge snowfalls that we've seen in other areas. So we've lost a lot of fires. So another thing that happened during this time period, of course, was the pandemic. I didn't want to talk too much about the pandemic because we are still sort of at the tail end of it, sorry. And it's been a real bummer. It was a kick in the pants for a lot of us. So rather than dwelling a lot on the pandemic, I thought I would touch on some happy things that came from the pandemic. While I was unemployed, I did build a fort in my mother-in-law's backyard. So here you see the fire pit and fort that I built in my mother-in-law's backyard. We go out there sometimes, we sit on those wooden log or stumps there, and we will roast marshmallows or whatever it is. So in the spirit of making lemonade from lemons, I did make a fort. And my mother-in-law's backyard, I will say, looks amazing. So I hope that COVID was as gentle to you and yours as possible. There are lots of other things that we could have talked about tonight, but I decided to keep this evening a little shorter. So we're going to end here pretty quickly. In fact, we are essentially done. So we're not even going to go a full hour tonight. So before we go, as we say farewell, hold on a moment. Oh, hold on, there's a question. Yeah, it's been, I will say, I have learned a whole bunch in doing this. So I'm going to, hold on, I'm going to come back to this. Let me do something.